Let's go ahead and get started with Kaku. Mike Verdicchio prepared these slides I'll be presenting. Alright, what's up guys? So we're going to start off and do this a little bit out of order today. Just a bit, like Daniel's got the order figured out perfectly, so everything will make sense, but like I got to get rolling in a few. So we're starting off like with Kaku right here, but then it'll all make sense right after that. Alright, so for Kaku we read 3 chapters. We read chapters 1, 2, and 5, or we were supposed to have read those 3 chapters, and that was, it's Physics of the Future is the book. Chapter 1 was like the future of the computer. Chapter 2 is artificial intelligence, and chapter 5 is energy. Okay, so chapter 1, with like this book right here, all we really needed to know was like the claim, the reasons, evidence, all of that great stuff about it. So to start off, like Kaku's main claim in this is that computers will be ubiquitous in the future. And that pretty much just means that like computers are going to be everywhere. Like any single thing you can imagine, there's going to be a computer or some sort of chip is a part of that. And like the main reason for that is that technology is already present in a lot of what we already see, like smartphones, you know, like even refrigerators and stuff like that have computers. So eventually, like it's just going to be everywhere, and it's so easy to see that. And his main evidence for that is Moore's law. And Moore's law is that every 18 months, computing power, you know, like random access memory, all of that stuff pretty much doubles about every 18 months. We can see that, like, you know, the last couple of years, it's actually been a lot quicker than that. It's been more like a year, but on average, it's about every 18 months, computing power doubles. And like some key concepts to keep in mind is Moore's law, you know, computing power doubling, and also the singularity. And that's the point where the human race changes so drastically that like we can't go back. And that's where Kaku says computers are going to be ubiquitous. Like once we get to that point, like we will never be able to rid our lives of like computing. All right, so chapter 2 is the future of artificial intelligence. And his main claim in this one is that artificial intelligence is going to become a supplement to our lives, but it's not really going to run our lives. Like it'll definitely become very important in all of our lives, but like artificial intelligence is never going to be smarter than a human. Like it's just unable to happen at this point. So his like main reasons for this are that computing power has right now the intelligence of a cockroach. So like if you took a computer system and put it in the brain of any like animal or insect, it would be a cockroach, and a cockroach is nowhere near like the brain power of the human. So obviously that right there is reason enough as to why it's not going to happen anytime soon. And also limited funds are kind of halting expansion. Like we could make computer systems that are as smart as the human brain, but it's not going to happen because you would need like, you know, an undefined amount of money, and nobody wants to put forth that money to do it. So his evidence for that is that the neuron counts are nowhere near that of a human brain. I just went over the cockroach thing. And also the human brain works off of about 20 watts, and it produces a negligible amount of heat. And any supercomputer works off of, you know, like hundreds of thousands of kilowatt hours. And also, like, it gives off so much heat that, like, we would never be able to create a computer that is as efficient as the brain itself. So some of the key concepts to look at here are also the singularity, the point of pretty much no return in computing. Top-down AI is where you kind of start with the human brain. Like, that's where biologists come in, and they just kind of, like, take the brain, chop it up, you know, piece by piece, and they pretty much, like, work downwards. And then bottom-up AI is when you start from scratch and you just like build a computer that is hopefully as smart as the brain itself. And lastly, Kaku refers to the caveman principle, which is like pretty much in general a principle that humans always lean towards the simpler life. Like they like to have printed copies of emails, you know, they like to have calendars that are written instead of on the computer. Like it's just that lifestyle that's kind of a little easier, and just it's going to be so hard to transform into. And that's where Kaku also says that like artificial intelligence isn't going to run the world because people just aren't going to be able to transform into that lifestyle. And lastly, chapter 5 is one that you saw we went over a little bit in lecture on Thursday with the guest speaker, and it's the future of energy. And his main claim here is that oil as an energy source will eventually deplete, and it'll end, and we will shift to using other forms of energy, such as solar, hydrogen, and he mentions cold fusion. He's unsure about whether that's actually going to happen, but he doubts it at the moment. And his main reason for that is that oil doesn't give the power we need. We need something more efficient. We need better technology. And so he's just looking for something new that can be a whole lot better than what we're at right now. And he's saying that the technology for solar and hydrogen power is already here, so all we have to do is make it better. And we just have to expand on that, and eventually that can take over the oil and fossil fuels that we're using right now. And a few key concepts to learn here are the Herbert curve, which is the approximation of the production rate of a resource over time. He briefly mentioned this. I doubt it's super important, but I mean, it's just something to mention. You know, it's how resources are changing over time. So you can see we're going to transition from oil to hydrogen to solar, and it's just that transition. Hydrogen and solar energy are the future is pretty much his main claim in general. And lastly, cold fusion is smashing atoms together to create energy, and that's the one that Kaku doesn't believe is going to work out too well in the future.